Hello again, I'm back up in the loft. It's rather cold because it's winter now, and I'm a bit groggy still, so I apologise if my voice is hard to hear. But I do end up gagging a bit every so often due to a cold that I had over Christmas, but I think I'm on the mend now. Anyway, I wanted to get on with another project, and I did mention that I wanted to do something with this bridge, as it's all part of me making this bridge and station look more like Broxbourne. And as Broxbourne is a T-Junction at this point here, I want to construct the road to go round and continue that I previously mentioned. And so if I put this piece of foam board here, just to give an idea, I want the road to come away like this, which will involve cutting this about and redoing this part of the road. And it's just going to go off scene. It will go right next to this beam here, which I can't remove because I'm in the loft obviously, and this is a loft layout, but it will sort of cover some of the beams so you won't see it, and this will become sort of a corner of a T-junction. And while I'm up to it, or doing it, I will see if I can fit some street lighting in as well, because it will be a good point to actually sink some tubes down that I can run wires in to the bottom baseboard, and then install street lighting at least on this corner, and then I will continue to add street lighting in the future, but I'll do that at the same time. I've got the guys here that are just depicting it being worked on. You know me, I do like to show things being worked on in the model world in a realistic way, because that's what you're modelling. You're trying to model the real world, so I suppose I like to show it being done in the real world. I made up some temporary traffic lights out of a few bits and pieces, and there's one at this end of the bridge holding all the traffic up, causing chaos, and there's another one at the other side of the bridge over there holding all the traffic over that direction as well, and there's police and workers on the scene. I do miss some of the 1980s and 70s cars, and it's nice to have them on your layout, including this bomb bug, which I was quite fond of. I never owned one, but the neighbour had one, and they were an interesting car of the age. I think made by Reliant Robin, and the three-wheeler, but the classic colour was the orange like that, and it's great to have one of them on the layout, just to remind me of years gone by. And it's a way really of remembering a lot of things from, you know, years ago, even your childhood. When you've got a layout like this, you can add places you've worked, you know, places you visited, and places where you lived, and stuff that you're fond of, so you can really personalise a layout and make it your own. And it's full of reminders, right, like this layout is, of different places. One of my reminders is this building over here. I thought it was very close to a building I used to work at, so that's what I did. I adapted it to look like, very much look like a building where I used to work years ago. With the camera you constantly notice things, and I just noticed this traffic light was way too high, so I've just gone and cut about 10mm off it, and even now it probably looks a little bit high, but you know, it's got to be in eye level with the motorists really, and it's easy to overlook these sort of things, but usually you can spot it when you start filming things. So filming the layout is very handy really, as well as showing you guys what I'm doing it does give me an idea of proportion when I play it back to myself. I've got a kit, a ratio kit I've had for a long while, and it's sort of a bricked up sort of, I suppose, arches and stuff, and I just thought, well, just for a change I could run that along here instead of just plain walling, because a lot of bridges are built over time and there's additions to them all over the place. They're never a nice complete bridge really, from, well, especially from the past, as they're made up with all different sort of parts to them as it's been renewed over the years. So I thought it'd be a nice thing to have arches along here as it disappears into the distance. Anyway, it's enough talking about it. It's time to get on and do the actual work. It's not gone too bad. I've got the walling out of the way, but I have noticed another issue what you often come up against when you start reworking on something. You don't know what you built it with sometimes, and that's a lump of wood under there, so that's going to take a bit of work to work out how I'm going to lay the road on top of it. So I'm probably going to have to do a bit of hard sawing to get through that bit of wood, even though the rest of it is foam and very easily sort of cut and work with. That could be a little bit of a nuisance, so I might even have to take the whole block out. But that's what happens when you start reworking things and you forget what you built it with. But I'm sure that won't stop me. Just cut up a bit of foam board, and I think it's going to fit in there quite well actually. It gives me an idea, and what I think I'll do is just cut the road to match where this piece of potential road's going to go, and then I'll try and sink it down level with the road, and as this is flexible I can sort of bend it carefully. So obviously I'll put a crease in it if I'm not careful. Even though I'll be painting this and then stippling it to get a tarmac effect. But I think that's how I built most of this actually, or some of it is foam board. Anyway, it allows a certain amount of flexibility using this stuff. And you don't need nothing really too strong because it is a model you're building. It doesn't have to be too rigid, and it allows you to modify it in the future like this. think in some ways in the past when I built this I did go over the top with too much hard landscaping, and it's unnecessary. Too much of this hard wood I put into it. It could have been a much more sort of hollow construction, and it doesn't need as much strength as I added originally. But I'm disassembling it, and this time it'll be a bit more honeycombed and maybe not over the top with the strength, but that's all part of the learning processes. As you can see, I made a bit of a mistake and I put it upside down. But hopefully I can sort that out. Yeah. Don't always go smooth, does it? Picked it up the wrong way from where I've cut out little notches to take the tubes that are going to come up from underneath. And I ended up with some hot melt glue on top of the surface here. It's not the end of the world. I can always work that out somehow. But I've now got the glue there, so I wanted to just get on and glue it. I've cut off the glue that I dropped on here by mistake, this hot melt glue. And I knew it was going to damage the surface, but as I was saying, no road is perfect, and as we know these days there's potholes everywhere, so you know, as long as it's lower than the surface, I think it will look like a repaired pothole or a pothole that needs repairing. Once I paint it, I'll sort of accentuate it, if that's the word, and make it look more pronounced on purpose, I think. I'm also going to use some of the old walling, so walling what used to be in place. I'm now going to cut some of the walling that has already been painted and use it in that area and possibly other areas. Well, I carried on a bit longer yesterday and did a few more bits, but pretty much as you see in the last bit of footage is, you know, where I'm at. And it's another day, and it's even colder today. It's -4 outside, so I must be mad to come up here. But I just thought there ain't a lot more you can do really in this weather. So I'm up here and I'm just gonna do a little bit of painting. I've warmed up the loft a bit. Yeah, it's still quite chilly, but yeah, it's fine for modelling, really. So I'm going to do a bit of painting. Now this is called Urban Nights, if I remember. Yeah, Urban Nights. And I think this came from Wix originally, but I'm quite fond of this for a tarmac colour, and I use it in most places where I have any tarmac. Paint's rather thick anyway, and that's a good thing really, because once I've finished painting the area I'm going to go over it with a sponge to give it a stippled effect, and that has the effect of sort of giving it a pimply finish, which then dries looking more like a tarmac finish, and you don't see any brush lines in it. Or at least that's the way I do it, and I've been quite satisfied with my results over the years. Time to use a sponge. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but you get a nice pimply effect. Come round the other side of the rafter. I'm starting to paint the slate grey from Wix that I've got on the brickwork off the side of the bridge. I've degreased it first, as sometimes when this stuff is moulded there is a releasing agent which doesn't help the paint adhere, so if you clean it with alcohol the paint should take really well. It's just an ordinary acrylic match pot. And I protected the landscape with some tape as best as I can, but it's quite difficult because it's a finished landscape, but hopefully this will keep the paint off of it, and if there is anything that needs touching up afterwards, there's a multitude of little bushes that you can hide a multitude of sins, you might say. So I'll just get on with it. finished the painting of it. I will be weathering it when it's dry. There is a difference between the bridge and this. I might have used a slightly different grey on that, but that's all well and good really, because as I said already, that bridges are built at different times and added to and repaired and whatever, so they all look a bit higgledy-piggledy. So it's nice if they actually have different colours and different sort of brickwork, just to give them feature. And I think it's going to work. I will be weathering, as I said, and adding sort of mortar into it, but it's going to be a slightly different colour, this section, as this possibly was done at a different time. What I also like to do is to go along with an acrylic pen, black in this case, to indicate a seal in the join of the road, like they used to do, which they don't tend to do it that much nowadays, and that's why the roads break up. But they used to run tar, liquid tar, between the road joins to stop any ingress of water and damage to the road surface. But it just gives a good finishing touch. They used to pour it from like a bucket with a spout on it years ago, and it would have been boiling hot liquid, so quite dangerous stuff, but did a very good job at sealing the gaps in the road. Right, I think that'll do it. And once I weather the road and make it look worn and well used, that will all blend in as well, even though it's very prominent at the moment. I also stipple the rest of the wall as well, really, just to make it look more random and decrease any sign of brush strokes. Now, for the mistake I made when I was gluing, which damaged the road surface, and I said probably I can get away with it as a pothole, I think it's going to look like a very good pothole actually, and I shall probably accentuate it when I'm weathering and make it look like something that does need some attention. What I'm also doing is getting the first bit of sponge I used on the road that's virtually dry, and there's a bit of paint in it, and I'm just going along weathering with it as it's a darker grey. Just push it into the brickwork and just to add some grubbiness to it. It sort of acts as a sort of a highlighter. And it's nearly dry, so you don't get much off it at all, but here and there you get a certain amount of colour, and this looks like soot or just grime from years ago, adding age to the structure. It's the same as weathering powders really, it's just that it's almost dry paint in the sponge. So I should probably get my weathering powders out as well. Right, I just had a camera scare. I thought my camera was broken. I couldn't zoom in or out, and whatever I tried I couldn't seem to put it right. So I reset it, and it's working okay now. It's quite an old Sony Handycam, but still very good for its age really. It's capable of 1080i, so I carry on using it. I'm quite fond of it, I know what it can do, but yeah, that did give me a bit of a fright. I thought that was the end of it. I've had it since about 2011 I think, so it's getting on now, but hopefully I've set everything back to what it should be, including the quality of the video, so we'll see in a minute. But I'll carry on with what I was about to show you, is that I've been making more holes in the road for the street lighting, and what I do is, as I mentioned before, is put a piece of tube down through a hole after using a long Cirrus drill, and just push the tube down with a little bit of glue on it, and that becomes the feed through hole for the wires for the lamp. It's very straightforward and very easy to do, and allows for whatever thickness of thing you're sort of taking the wire through. I just noticed a condensation leak up here at the moment. Looks like my bridge is getting wet at one end here. Just spotted it. Yeah, there's a bit of a patch on the bridge. I think that's dropping from a little hole in the bubble wrap above, but it won't be rain, it's condensation. So I'll have to see if I can do something to stop that dripping through wherever it's coming from. It's stained the road, but that doesn't really matter because that adds a bit of character, you might say. So even something going wrong can sometimes be something that actually adds a bit of realism. I'm glad my camera's alright now. By the way, what I use in my case for rodding is a load of carbon fibre fishing rod ends really. My company uses these for something else and they get thrown away, the tips, and some of it is usable for sending wires down, so I just cut it to length and poke it through the layout. But any tube that's sort of big enough to take wires will do. This just happens to be plentiful and is going to get thrown away anyway. Now another little trick you might want to know about is this surface here. Now I've painted it, you know, it's only sort of like a foam and paper board, but it's reasonably strong. Now I've painted it, I need to give it some character. You can do this just by even rubbing it with your fingers, and it brings out sort of the grain and gives it a sort of more tarmac look. Or you can get some very fine emery and do it, and it's best to do it in the direction the cars travel. It gives the impression that there's been rubber tyres going up and down in it, as I said, bringing out like the chippings of the tarmac. Now this is just like the stipple effect I did. It's taking the top off the paintwork that's stippled, but it does give an interesting effect. I don't know how much you can see of that, but if I zoom in you should get a general idea of the grain that comes out. I'm going to put some pavement together now, and it's a bit of slim sort of, I don't know, I suppose, bit of wood I've had around, but it's very thin. I think I cut slices of this up for a very thin bit of board, and it's sort of pavement size. It's what I used over the bridge already, so I'm just going to put that along here. And the pavement itself is this embossed plastic art that I've had for a long while. Can't even remember where I got it from actually, but it looks very much like paving stones, and I've cut it so that it's got one paving stone and then a couple of sort of half or third and a 2/3 sort of paving stone, just to break up and give it a pattern. Anyway, I shall measure what I need there to just go beyond the corner, and it can turn the corner and start going down into the station. I'm under the baseboard where I'm doing the wiring. A lot of people ask me about the wiring as they're not sure. I'm not the neatest wirer in the world when it comes to doing my own wiring. I am when I'm at work, but when I'm at home I just want to get the job done, so I will tidy this up at some point. But these two wires here with these two break-in connectors here is a 12-volt line, and this runs down this side of the layout and down the other side of the layout to feed any 12-volt lighting, primarily just the LED lighting, which doesn't take a lot of ampage. I think the last time I measured it, I've got a load of 800 milliamps on it, so 0.8 of an amp, which is nothing really. And I just keep adding one street light or one light per building or whatever, and it doesn't mount up to much. Anyway, the lights above, which you've just seen me putting in, these street lights, the wires come down through the tubes, and because they're so fine I've wrapped it around this handy little I suppose, I forget what they're called, like they're a block that joins things together. A lot of people just call them chocolate blocks, but they're not electrical chocolate blocks, they're just for shelving or whatever. Anyway, I just wrapped it around that, taking it through the holes just for strength, because these wires are like hairs and they can get snapped very easily. And on the end of the two reds are, try and get that in focus, are two resistors. So they're soldered on the ends of the red wires to the lamps, one on each. And if I can find it, oh, there it is. I've got a resistor down here, and the resistor you put on them
is a 1k resistor. I mean, you can go a little bit above it, possibly a little bit below it, but you're looking at 1k, 1.1, and if you want to dim it more, you just go up, 1.2, 1.3k. But the standard one to use with these little lamps is 1k. So both of these two have got 1k resistors on them. I don't share them. You don't want to share them. You want to individually put resistors on them, and then that will go into the little chocolate block up here that I've got, which I'm transferring the power from the 12 volt rail from previous installations and that, and it will be a case of putting the blacks together, which I've already done, and then putting those resistor legs into that chocolate block up there. And as soon as I do that, the lights will light. I'm just about to poke it in, so if you look at the light, see what I'm doing. That's it, and both lights are lit. If you don't put a resistor in there, they'll last probably about 10 seconds and then burn out. But it's quite easy to do, as I said. It's just a couple of resistors on the end of the wires. Primarily I solder them, it's the easiest way to do it. So you solder wires on one end of the resistor and then twist the legs together, in this case because I've got two of the resistors, and then put it into the terminal block. If you've only got one, you just need to have one leg of the resistor into the terminal block and the other one sleeve and soldered to the wire. It is best to put it on the red lead, the positive lead, to the lamps rather than the negative, as I think this protects it better actually. It's to do with the flow of electrons direction, so you're better protecting the LED if you put it on the positive, which is the red. So that's where I stick my resistor, and that's another two street lights lit up. Now I'm going to add a few road markings to finish it off, as well as painting a few things, and the road markings I use are by Scale Model Scenery. These are self-adhesive markings and you get plenty in the kit, and it seems a good way to do it for me. I occasionally get the odd one what peels off, but on the whole they're pretty good, so you just need to degrease the surface you're going to stick them on first. You may have noticed there was a gap here between the join of these panels, and just to sort of lose it, I put a downpipe there, a drainage downpipe, and that now looks like it has always had a downpipe, and you can't see a gap. So it's a way of covering up things, as well as bushes and stuff. You just need to think of what infrastructure you can put in a gap or a hole to lose it. I've gone ahead and added a few more bits of detail, including pavement and sort of telecoms box and a few other odds and bits and pieces. Any rate, I think I'm going to call that it, because it's getting way too long as a video, and I don't want to bore you stiff. But what I am going to do, I think in the future, is going to alter this, because the bridge at Broxbourne is different. There's just a raised part of the bridge here, and when you go down here there's a footpath, well not a footpath, a cutting in the wall to a staircase down here, a concrete staircase. So I think I'll be changing that. Plus along here it's not a wall or the top of a wall, it's a concrete sort of moulded concrete fence with the new river the other side, which I can't model because it's off scene, and it will, well, I couldn't really add it because of the uprights holding the roof up. It would be rather silly, so, but I might put the fencing in down there. And the new river does run under this sort of area here. I don't think it's worth trying to create a river at this point, so this bit's going to be a bit of poetic license and probably left very similar to this. But you can't model everything exactly because you're just limited by what you've got space wise, and you know, what you can create within your means. But all this modelling didn't cost me that much. I had most of the bits and pieces in my stock of bits, so a few lamps, and I think that was it really. The rest of it I already had. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Cheers, bye for now.